While we can't always control the next set of changes that occur in our life, or even pre-select the experiences we'll encounter, we have a lot more control than we realize. Stay tuned as we go over some practical tips and guidance on how to navigate eclipse season. Hey everyone, it's Christine. Welcome to this video on the eclipses, on how to navigate them, and some practical guidance. You all, before we get started, I want to simply note that this is a timeless video where the general guidance here and practical tips offered can be applied to any eclipse that you navigate through. There is a lot that tends to come with eclipses because they denote, simply put, change. Change is going to come in our life, and that's probably something even without the eclipse that we know. If we can think back to the earliest memories that we've had, our life more than likely has changed. So this is just another way that we can navigate our earthly journeys and also spiritual journeys by tapping into higher knowledge, higher wisdom, divine forces, God, universe, source, energy, and put our trust and our faith into things working out in the best way possible for us. Because if we already look back into our entire life process, we'll realize that a lot of things were out of our control. We can only do so much in many ways. And the only thing we can perhaps control is the way we perceive or see a situation. And eclipses are no different. And many of these energies are said to bring circumstances into our lives that promote and simply accelerate timelines so we get there faster. Almost like someone pressing the forward button on a movie. Universe is like, okay, that's it. People be going way too slow. Speeding up time, let's get those eclipses down. And for me, a lot of this has to do with either it's time to wrap up lessons with people, it's time to learn things, let's go, we got to get moving, let's reorient ourselves back on this path. And because many times our souls are ready, we're being asked to evolve and to continue moving forward in our journey. So with eclipse season, things start to shift fast. So there's two ways to respond. You can embrace it and accept, or you can resist, which tends to induce more suffering, anxiety, and fear. And folks tend to promote this and perhaps hang on to this and create that type of hype, which I don't feel is necessary with eclipses. A great part of navigating this process is simply accepting and doing what you can to feel safe and secure within yourself, and then realizing whatever comes, I have the tools to handle this. Quick note about lunar versus solar eclipses. So lunar eclipses in general tend to be like potent moons. Many astrologers like to denote them as lunations on steroids. They're just more powerful. That's it. So lunar eclipses are similar to full moons. So there's something about releasing, letting go, completing. Whereas solar eclipses generally are about starting new things, akin to the new moon, where you are going to initiate something new, start something new, or be illuminated to something. What's interesting for me, either or, with new moons or full moons, the same thing with lunar eclipses and solar eclipses, both tend to denote endings and beginnings, because when you start something, you end something. And when you end something, you're about to start something. So the corollary goes with both. There's a dual faceted nature with both that are essentially helping you to propel forward. Just like when you step through a door or portal of energy here, you're leaving behind another space, time, and continuum in order to evolve. I always think of it like getting on one of those elevators or those walkways at airports. You know how they go, I don't even know what they're called, but they have conveyor belt things and you walk. And they essentially accelerate you down the hallway of the airport instead of walking by foot, because otherwise you'll be going at a slower speed. Let's get into how eclipse energies are felt. Most people start to feel eclipse energies earlier, sometimes weeks, sometimes months beforehand, especially if you're sensitive already with the lunations and you already feel them with new moons and full moons. And many times you'll start to get themes that are arising having to do with the eclipse, especially as it concerns the house that it's going to be activating, because usually they come in pairs. So usually eclipses work in pairs, and they focus on highlighting a specific area of life. So take note of previous cycles, of previous eclipse cycles in your life, so you can get an idea of how you felt. How did the energy come through to you? What was the time frame or the duration? Did it happen right at the event time or before? Did you start feeling a certain way? Did you feel it in your body or in any other way, or any signs? Because all of this is going to help you create your own eclipse toolkit and also help you to discern and to connect to yourself and realize, wait, I've been here before. I felt this before. Because when you have experienced many of these feelings, which we've experienced in many different landscapes in our human lives, we have our own tools and resources and little systems of support that help us navigate through these different processes and events. So the previous cycles are also going to clue you in on how you feel in your physical body, your emotional state, your feelings, and also what's coming up. And in general, the way that you receive these energetic and intuitive and psychic messages. Finding safety. This is really important when we talk about eclipses, when we know eclipses or eclipse season is approaching, or when we know an eclipse is right around the corner, depending on your belief systems, whether they are cultural, spiritual, religious, whatever they are. You may have heard a lot of stories already about eclipses and what they mean for you. There's a lot of foreboding, ominous energy surrounding them. And the ancients, in ancient times, and many civilizations and cultures, saw these as harbingers of not always positive things to come. But again, this has to do with change. And change can be positive or negative depending on how you perceive it. So that's another conversation, but something about finding safety is going to be key here, because whenever we are facing a loss of control, we experience a greater height or sense of vulnerability, of being seen, and that increases our insecurities, our fears, and a lot of things we can't control. So it's important that we take note of what can help us feel safe in our bodies, our environments, and also in connection to other people. We can't always control what's happening outside of us. We can't control these universal divine forces that are at hand, most definitely beyond us. But we can control how we feel, we can control our mindset, and we can control how we choose to see and navigate eclipses, and more importantly, what we can do to prepare. And it's not what you think. Because I'm not suggesting that you try to control and plan out this is what's going to happen. But these preceding suggestions that we're about to get into, these practical ways to prepare and navigate, I feel can help you create a sense of safety for yourself, which is not controlling it or controlling this phenomenon, because this is all about empowering you, strengthening your own resolve, and also leaning more into your connection with the divine. Okay, you all, let's dive into the practical ways and guidance to navigate eclipse season. The first one, establish or reinvigorate your spiritual practice. I continuously talk about this, and I think it's the most important element in our spiritual journey and even earthly journey, because there's a balance, right? You can't live fully in the spiritual world just like you can't live fully in the earthly realm. There has to be a foot in each door here, especially while we're existing in both. And it's a wonderful way to connect not only to your spiritual team, whether they include your ancestors, your animals, your spirit animals, your angels or angelic team, could be archangels, guardian angels, your spirit guides, your ascended masters, source, God, etc. This is an absolutely wonderful time to confer with your ancestors, with your spiritual team, make offerings, and start leaning into this connection, because a lot of the uncertainty and the unknown that comes up with eclipses and a lot of the fear people promulgate, which I think is a bunch of BS, and just, yes. The main point is we always navigate uncertainty in life, and I want you to think back in your own life. Many times you didn't know the next step, or you didn't know what was coming, and with eclipses too. This is why it's important to lean into releasing that, to something bigger than us through prayer, through meditation, or simply connecting through conversation with your spiritual team. Something that can help too, what I have found, is energetically writing. That is, writing a pen or with pencil on a piece of paper, something small, all of your worries or fears, and then handing them over to your spiritual team at your altar. You can put it under a dish that's safe from fire, like a fireproof dish, or wherever you have candles, and you can light something next to it as an offering to your spiritual team. And it's amazing how much lighter you feel. This allows space, quiet time, contemplation, solitude, and community to connect to unseen forces. And I say that broadly. Obviously, people are going to see these different energies in many different ways. But the whole point of this is to nurture a facet of faith, of divinity, and of our own spirituality by fomenting this. So this is an opportunity to strengthen these channels and more importantly, strengthen your connection, your beliefs, and your trust. Because when you have faith and trust, those are very powerful elements. And through the actions that I'm telling you, it really helps during these times. Finally, your spiritual practice allows you to continue cultivating a sense of support and love that you will receive. It's absolutely amazing to me. I'm always astonished each time that whenever I pray or I connect with folks and we talk about this and they pray or meditate with their spiritual team, how much of an alleviation you feel. You feel lighter, you feel better. You may feel the love coming through. You may feel almost like a warm hug, like a spiritual hug or a divine hug. The second practical way to navigate eclipse season is to do something safe daily. So I mentioned this earlier about finding safety. A lot of it has to do with feeling emotionally, physically, psychologically, and energetically safe. And during these times, it's really important in many facets, I should say, to tap into this, because a lot of what brings up the fear and anxiety means that there's some type of fear around what will happen, what is to come, things we can't control. So I'm going to ask you, what makes you feel emotionally and psychologically safe? It's important during these times to find some type of safety in our earthly bodies, because if we don't, then our nervous system goes into overdrive and it activates the sympathetic nervous system. And we want our parasympathetic system to go into rest mode. We don't want to be activated. We're frazzled or on guard all the time. This is going to vary for everyone, but I have a few suggestions here. During this time, in and around the eclipse season, enhance your sensory experiences and environment with sounds, scents, feels, or touches that are good to you. For example, I know for many folks, feeling safe can include having some type of blanket. Maybe it's a weighted blanket or your favorite blanket or a stuffed animal or even your pet or a pillow. Same thing with the clothing you wear. Most people, when you are trying to find safety, not everyone, but most people like feeling something soft on their skin, soothing, nothing with like little crinkly, metally zippers or any of that. I'm just giving suggestions here. Find rest throughout the day as you can, as it fits within your schedule, and find different ways to do this. Meditation is an amazing practice that you can take wherever you are. You don't need anything. And you can do that in 1 minute. You can do that while riding the elevator. You can do walking meditations while you're climbing stairs. It doesn't always mean you have to close your eyes. Forest bathing is another way to connect, ground, and find safety. You can also walk through the park, walk in nature, or sit. There's a contemplative energy around this. Petting an animal. There are studies, I don't even need to link them, suggesting that petting animals helps reduce stress, lowers blood pressure, and induces some type of calm and overall sense of well-being. So if you have animals or you see animals, you're able to connect with them. That's another way too to find some type of safety. Physical activity, water, showers, thermal baths, pools, beaches, anything with nature, writing, music, art, or anything that you can tap into that allows you to channel this energy. Instead of sitting with this anxious energy all the time, you can channel it and do something to transmute that. That'll also help as well. And finally, sleeping. A lot of I would say several weeks before to maybe after with eclipse season, because they tend to be back to back that come in two, and then we have a break, and then we get two more in the next season. So fall, spring, depending on where you are in the world. They tend to be very tiring and exhausting and can deplete you energetically. The third way to navigate eclipse season, prayer. This goes hand in hand with your spiritual practice, but not everyone does this, and I encourage you to think of it more like a conversation. And again, go with your own intuition and your own belief system. So for me, prayer is very much about having a conversation with your spiritual team and with different members of your spiritual team. And when you talk to someone, whether it's a friend or a therapist, how much better you feel? Same concept too with prayer. You always feel good, and this reinforces a positive effect and also foments a deeper connection to your spiritual team because they're always listening. I would say during this time, pray as often as you need, or write your prayer down and include it under a spiritual team member, maybe something that evokes their memory or signification, or under a candle that's safe, obviously. You could also create a prayer jar for worry. Some people have that, like a worry jar or candle. And you can create like a little box, a jar, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And every time you have some type of worry, you can write it down on something like a post-it note or something small and fold it up and put it in there. And it's great to keep it by your altar if you have one, or anywhere that you like to connect spiritually. And it's a way to perhaps absolve some of that energy from you, but release it. And it feels really good. The next way to navigate eclipse season is to make space. This is really similar, akin to almost preparing for the spring equinox, because the spring equinox almost creates that segue, almost like opening the door to eclipse season. Because very shortly after, about a week after the spring equinox, we experience the first eclipse of the season. And when you're fearful or resistant to changes, sometimes taking the first step helps to alleviate that. When you have a lot of things that are around you that you have been wanting to take care of, whether it's laundry or going through paperwork or simply putting things away, and it just seems overwhelming because there's so much around you. And I'm giving you a quick tangible example here. Sometimes simply just getting up and saying, you know what, okay, it's laundry just for today, and tackling that, you end up feeling so much better. And the first step is always the hardest. It truly is. But once you get moving, it moves pretty quickly and it moves faster. And then you realize, okay, one less thing to worry about. So in that same vein, change is relative and it can mean something different to everyone. And allowing yourself to take that first step to initiating some type of change, especially where the eclipse may be activated in your natal chart, or where you may be feeling like some type of change may be coming, can help you lean into this more. And this taps into the ancient Chinese principle of feng shui, something that I'm not an expert in, I'm not, certified, but this is something I have learned a lot about since I was a child because I was always drawn to the energy of my environment. And what I realized is you can shift the energy really quickly. And it's all about making space. This is what I'm saying here. I'm not talking about really going deep into energetic placements right now, just for the purposes of navigating eclipse season. It's about making space and acceptance and honoring changes in a way that feels good to you, but that still allow you to move forward. This also tends to coincide around the time of the spring equinox when there is a huge reawakening, a rebirth, new starts, and new beginnings. So many folks are already lightening up, undoing layers, and spring cleaning. Another way to navigate this season is to create a pre-eclipse ritual. And this isn't about, again, manifesting what you want the eclipse to bring you or not, none of that. Because eclipses tend to be wild cards and a lot of things tend to, almost like GPS, you thought you were going to go in this direction, all of a sudden the GPS changes and says, no, you're going that way. And you're like, what? Sometimes you may be still going to the same destination, but you're going a different way. similar to the eclipse energies. So I want to say, with creating a pre-eclipse ritual, this is something I've done personally, and it's always helped me spiritually and emotionally feel prepared. I'm like, okay, bring it. But more importantly, it helps me feel safe. And I like to combine different elements, and I intuitively create my own ritual to welcome in the season of, and harbinger, I should say, of big changes that are coming up ahead. So for me, first I like to start with physical activity. I love hiking, walking, yoga, something to move that element of fire, of getting that energy out, especially if there's any lingering fear or anxieties or nervousness. Moving really helps. Water is another element. It's like a positive double whammy, because you can do exercises in water, you can move around, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, and you can purify yourself. Water is extremely cleansing, soothing, and calming. It's also very cathartic. So I tap into earth and air elements. And for folks that incorporate what I just said, it could be water elements too. I also do a deep cleansing of my body. So I like to soak in tubs. Some people like thermal baths. I don't have a thermal bath or anything fancy. I just have a simple tub. I take salts, sometimes baking soda. I don't really do essential oils. But you can deck out your bath and you can lay in there, set an intention. And for me, it's just usually to maintain some type of inner peace. And I soak in there. And many times I'll do a meditation while I'm soaking. And I usually stay in my bath for 30 minutes to an hour. Again, pick a time that works for you. This is a beautiful way because when we're in the bath, we tend to be in a relaxed state and we're more receptive and we start letting go. This is all energetically, of course. And we can purge a lot too at this time. Tears, emotions, any fears. Plus the heat really helps you feel better in combination with the magnesium in the Epsom salt. Next, and I mentioned this earlier, I get into my most comfiest clothes. For me, it's really important, the sensory experience of what I wear. I can feel a lot of different things in my clothing, like fabrics or threads or different seams, and if they bother me, I can't wear it. So I'm someone that likes things that are very soft now, almost like a puffy sweater or a blanket. So that's what I get into. Then I put socks on with slippers because I like feeling cozy. I don't care what time of year it is. And I'm sharing with you ideas because I want you to also craft your own ritual. And it's really about feeling safe and saying, you know what, I'm going to embrace eclipse season as it comes, and this is what I'm going to do. And that's how you can get your power back instead of giving that away to fear and anxieties and all those other people that tend to bring up BS and shit around eclipses being fearful and things breaking down. I'm more optimistic and tend to focus on things. You know what? Things are going to work out in the way that they need to, and that's the only thing I can do. But I can also do this routine. I also like to do another meditation after I get out of the bath and get into my comfortable clothes, and I connect to myself further. So I incorporate earth, water, fire, air elements. Finally, I light a candle. I like candles a lot, but I like candles for the two ancestors I work with. So you can light one for your spiritual team, or you can light as many candles as you'd like, and you can pray and talk to them. And this is one of the, I would say, most cathartic elements of my ritual, because that's when I let go of a lot of any worries that I have. You can also at this time venerate your spiritual team, your ancestors, your animals, and make any offerings as well through coins, money. You can put some fruits or their favorite items, whatever you'd like. So I want to caution you again. There are, in the astrological community and spiritual community, many folks say not to do rituals or ceremonies or any practices. And I don't agree with that because I've been doing this for a while now. I think you have to really be guided by your intuition. This isn't about manifesting or dictating what specifically you want the eclipses to bring to you. This is more about preparing yourself and not trying to control any outcomes. That's it. These are also excellent times for divine, intuitive, psychic connections because you're going to receive a lot of messages here and many omens, positive omens too. You'll also feel things because a lot of folks think, okay, bad things are going to happen. Maybe the bad thing that happens is you end a relationship, but you realize this wasn't it for you and you meet someone better, or you meet a group of friends that's even better, or you change your major. So it's all in the perception of the mind. Always be guided by your own inner voice, your own intuition, and always do what you feel resonates with you. I think that's the most important thing that I can emphasize in all of this with navigating eclipse season. I offer practical ways that you can harness, that you can use not only to feel good, but to alleviate any stress, any fears, any anxieties, especially unknowns. Because when we open that door, think about like opening a doorway and there's a long hallway, maybe from the movie like The Shining. People think the eclipses are like those characters, like they're freaking out. And really, when you go in with that mindset, then a lot of things start happening. You can go down rabbit holes of fear. You can start going back to challenges you had. You can become anxious. And that's not the place to be because it disempowers you. You lose your own inner strength, your own confidence. You give away your sovereignty to things that don't deserve it and to other BS stories about this. So I really encourage you to reframe how you navigate this season and to implement some of these practical tips and guidance, or think of your own. Drop down. If there's something that you do that I haven't discussed, drop it down below. It could help other people. I'm always open as well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with setting intentions around positive blessings, protection, divine support with eclipses. There's nothing wrong with that. I encourage it. I always say, be careful too when there's laundry lists of do's and don'ts around eclipses. And again, it's going to really connect and perhaps pertain to your own spiritual and religious beliefs, maybe even familial and cultural practices. And I'm not here to negate them at all. You always have to listen to yourself and follow what you feel is true for you. At the end of the day, this is all about your relationship to the divine. That's it. It's just you and your channel, and no one else can tell you what to do. So take a look at some of these other videos. I hope this video has helped. I'd love your feedback. The best way to support this channel is to hit the thumbs up button, like, subscribe. I'd love to see and hear more of you and share what's going on. Otherwise, I wish you a blessed eclipse season whenever and wherever it happens. Take care.